here's the unlock for anyone. If there's anything in this episode that you're going to really appreciate or take away from this, is you becoming the bank. So the banking system is not in our favor. Like when you buy a house, they make money on the spread. So if you can do the same thing, you're the bank, right? With your own capital. You want to crush life and you want to create all this stuff and you want to fast forward in time, but all of this takes time. And we have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be patient with the results. We have to be patient with the people around us. Because if you're not centered, then you could implode, basically.
Our guest today left corporate America after 20 plus years to jump headfirst into real estate investing to achieve his ultimate goal, financial freedom. Less than 1 year into his real estate journey, after educating himself, building networks, and analyzing hundreds of real estate deals, he purchased his first multifamily building. He's a proud member of GoBundance, which is a tribe of millionaires seeking to share all successes, struggles, ambitions, and failures without being judged. Welcome to the show, the founder of media agency On Air Brands, the innovative networking and podcasting event PodMax, and the real estate investment company Mindando Investment Group, Erik Cabral.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that, man.
My man. Hey, so much to talk about today. We got a lot of, this word gets thrown around a lot, synergy, but I think I can actually use it and it's appropriate today. In the podcasting space, I want to hear, we're going to talk about your story. We're going to talk about where people can find you, which is ericcabral.co. All of your social media and website links will be clickable in the show notes. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, man. Let's do it. Excited.
And a quick shout out to our buddy Todd, right?
Yeah.
Todd Armstrong, a firecracker of a human being, making this happen. And Todd, if you're listening to these, because you're the one who made this connection happen, we greatly appreciate you. Off camera, we were just throwing you a ton of love. So I said, let's bring that on camera today.
Yeah, he's one of those salt of the earth type of guys.
He gets the job done. He's just really cool. He's dependable. That's what a great friend is, right? Great person.
100%.
You know, you have over a decade of experience in that creative branding marketing landscape that I want to use that knowledge and kind of pick your brain. You're a power player in podcasting. And so what I'd love to hear today is your story. Like, how does that begin? When did you get into that creative space? And really ultimately, like, what led you to what you're doing today? I'd love to hear all that.
Yeah. Feel free to interrupt, because that's a long story. But I've always been a creative, from the early days when I was a child until, sketching Marvel comics and characters, and then being a, prepubescent kid, drawing Cindy Crawford and models, life size, because I needed them in my room. And it was interesting because I never really knew that was going to be my life. Being in the arts. And it wasn't until my father, was fed up with me getting into trouble with the law and hanging around the wrong kids and having long hair and smoking dope. And he was just like, I'm done with this. And he ripped off all my heavy metal posters off the wall. And he was like, and grabbed me by the ear and brought me to this school in upstate New York called Sullivan County Community College, which was an art school. And I didn't, I just sat.
So did he
quietly.
destroy the Cindy Crawford? Everyone's
we're hanging
have
over
that.
here. No, he tore up like James Hetfield and Anthrax and all those and Megadeth posters. He ripped everyone who had long hair except for Cindy Crawford. But yeah, man. Dude, if it wasn't for that eye-opening moment that I arrived at Shangri-La for me. It was drafting tables and cameras and rapidograph pens and all these things and tools and people that I was like, this is my home. And finished up my 2 years there and then continued my education in graphic design in Manhattan at School of Visual Arts. And that was it, man. That was my career for 2 decades.
Where did you say you grew up? I know you're in Jersey now.
Born and raised in Yonkers, New York. And
Yonkers,
then,
okay. I've been there before.
Yeah. We weren't in the burbs, man. We were straight up. That was like the early days of what turned into the projects. Like you go back there now, you don't really, you drive really quickly through it.
Yeah, I was at a nice. It was when I was a store manager in training. I went out. They sent me to Yonkers to work with like one of the top store managers in the company, and it was like a nice little trip. But it was in this like beautiful mall complex type thing, outdoor, really really cool. But yeah, I definitely knew when I was driving back to my hotel in my rental car, I was like, this is not a place I'd want to stop for gas. You know what I'm saying?
There's beautiful, yeah, like I said, the burbs
It
of Yonkers,
was.
and that's it sounds like you were there,
I
but
was in
then
the
there's
burbs, but when I
yeah,
was getting back to wherever they put me up in the hotel, I remember,
geez,
all
yeah.
right, Lauren,
Sound like
just keep going.
they were trying to save some money.
Go one. No, it was, I don't know. It was just, I could tell that very similar to Buffalo. There's just certain areas you don't
Mhm.
want to spend too much extra time in. And then there's beautiful areas like 10 minutes down the road, you know?
100%, 100%. I mean, the Yonkers, towards the south end of Yonkers, it turns into the Bronx. So that's
Right.
that's kind of where we were.
I,
Yeah.
I was happy to one of the bridges I was on, George Washington, possibly. Do you get to see Yankee Stadium off to the
Yeah,
corner?
it's
Yeah, I
beautiful.
remember
And there's
doing
that
that.
little sliver that when you go by in the subway, you could see a game live for a second. You're like, oh, there's a game going on.
Yeah. Aaron Judge home run right over the subway. All
Yeah.
right. So not to get off on a tangent, I love New York and I
Yeah, me too.
appreciate it. So you're in Yonkers, just to kind of put it on a timeline. Now you're back in Jersey, but you did some school,
Yep.
obviously in upstate New York,
Yep.
and then you got into more of a like a creative, what it was like you got your bachelor in
Hmm.
fine arts, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I achieved the dream, which was to live and work in Manhattan, and work for all
That's
these
cool.
sexy,
Yeah.
cool ad agencies that you see in the movies. And I built a career and I climbed up the corporate ladder. And one of those gigs brought me out to New Jersey, so that's why I'm here now. And I ended up staying here, finding my wife, and raising a family here. But it was going to be my retirement plan. Like I was just going to live here and collect my gold watch and achieve the dream of having the house with the picket fence and the 2.5 kids and a dog and all that stuff. And I was being laid off for the second time, which I always say I was blessed, right? Only twice in a 20 plus year career. And I started just reevaluating my life. I was like, man, I don't think I'm happy. Like I didn't think that, but I just felt it. I was like, I think I need more. I need
Was it a
something.
fulfillment issue? Like
Yeah,
the dots? Yeah, there was a
100%.
disconnect in the fulfillment
Yeah,
part. Yeah.
because what I was doing was surviving. Even though they say the two most addictive things in life is number one, heroin, and number two, a weekly salary. So what happens when you get that weekly paycheck? And I was getting paid well, above six figures, and I was a consumer. Like I would spend that money. I wouldn't do anything with it, and I just had toys and cars and houses and nothing really to show for it in here, inside me, because I wasn't developing this, I wasn't growing this, I wasn't trying to evolve past that. Like I was trying to get enough toys to make me happy, but I wasn't happy. Yeah. So I just started to explore and started to look around to like, what's next? How can I create the next chapter in life? And I discovered this book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I
Hmm.
call it the purple pill. A lot of people call it that.
Yeah.
Because once you take that pill, you go down the rabbit hole and you don't come back because you start to realize, wait a minute, I've been an employee all my life and there are other quadrants. He created this cash flow quadrant, right? Where it's ESIB, you're either an employee, or self-employed, or you're an investor, or you're a business owner. And he said, you want to live in the investor side and or the business side. So that's when I made the choice. Like, that's it. Start my own thing.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's one of those books I'm like halfway through it, and then I just keep getting more books. So then I like dive into another book. I need to finish Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I appreciate that the story because anyone who's hearing that the title is a little jarring at first, but basically he had two. He didn't really have a poor dad, but the mentality was poor. Compared to what he was able to learn from his rich dad, the mentality there that served him into the person that Robert Kiyosaki became. And it's loving in both situations. He's very respectful of both his fathers. So if anyone's listening to this right now, whether you're in sales, business, freelancer, looking to get in away from employee role into business owner, and then graduate into investor, into more of an entrepreneurial role, it's a beautiful book for sure.
Yeah,
And it's a purple pill. It's actually a purple cover too, but
yeah.
I don't know if that's coincidence or intended.
Oh yeah, 100%. He he's a good dude. I mean, he speaks a lot in terms of like the economy and going to the dark side, and but the book itself is such an eye opener for anyone that's in a W-2, and it could light that flame. It could spark that sort of passion inside of you if you're looking for that, and can create something worth exploring. And that's what it did for me. And I always credit that for giving me the courage to leave.
When you read that, Eric, like when did that aha moment happen?
I want to say I was 40 or 41.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. So you're definitely you're a young looking whippersnapper. I would have put you around. I'm 36. I would have thought you were maybe younger than me, actually,
dude,
which is cool. You never know.
I'm going to turn 50 this year.
Stop it. Yeah. I don't believe that. Yeah. All right, we're gonna end the interview. Eric's he's a pathological liar.
I'm a vampire. That's what I do. I appreciate that.
You look fantastic,
Thanks,
dude. If I'd have to go backwards in time to look that good at 49. So, man, this conversation has been great so far for me because being a creative myself and having a different story. I went to Buffalo State College for media production, but similar kind of track. And rather than getting into the creative side out of college, my thing was I got into sales and started to read the Robert Kiyosaki's and Grant Cardone's. And I know you have a real estate love and an investor love. So you're shaking your head. You know who Grant is, of course. To keep the convo flowing, we're going to take a break in a minute. One more thing I want to cover before we get to the break is let's talk about podcasting for a moment, because it's something that, we're obviously on a podcast having this conversation. It's something we both have an affinity and a love for. I personally know a lot of the answer on this, but I'm asking it for our audience, someone who's thinking, hey, I might be considering starting a podcast for my personal brand, whether it's like a solopreneur, entrepreneur person, or it's a business who's like, hey, we can use this in many different ways. So in your, not even opinion, but in your research, describe how launching a podcast can benefit a business or an organization.
Oh, man.
I know, right? That's a whole episode.
Exactly. Yeah. You sure you want to have the break? Let's go to break first. Yeah. But yeah, it's in terms of research. I can't say that there's been recent research because I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now. And I would admit that I didn't do a ton of research before starting my own podcast. But I knew what it was doing for me, and I knew how powerful it was for me when I was learning and I was growing, and continuously now, till this day, listening to podcasts, and people I like to call it the university on wheels.
I was just going to call it that. And I'm like, is he going to say it? Is he going to say it? Yeah. Because you're in Manhattan. So whether it's wheels like driving or you're on the subway, whatever,
100%.
You have a lot of, for me, it was windshield time when I was driving from appointment to appointment. But anybody who's listening to this has some point of their day that you can, I don't like to say multitask because that means that you're doing something less than 100%. But you can make the pinnacle of what you're doing, putting these on and learning. It changes it just opens up your mind.
100%, man. So I benefited greatly from podcasts in that format. But to be honest, Mike, when I started my own, it was for selfish reasons. Like I was networking a lot and I was doing a lot. So people didn't have clarity, and nor did I really, of what I did. Like, because I was in creative and I was doing logos and branding and marketing for people and clients. But then I was also on this side, left brain, sort of analytical, looking for deals and buying real estate and trying to get, find investors to join me on projects. So a lot of people at these meetups, real estate, mostly meetups, they would say, what do you do again? I see you talking about this, talking about that. So anyone who's out there who has a platform or creating a platform, I highly recommend that you focus on one thing because you don't want to confuse your audience. So really it was the podcast that I looked as a platform for me to create a personal brand. I don't know if I called it that at the time, but it was like, let me at least point people to a door and say, hey, you're asking these questions. go to my podcast. Once you walk in there, you're going to get all the answers, and I'm going to be getting answers because I'm talking to amazing people, and it's the university, right? I'm learning and I'm asking the questions that I need to hear for myself, and as well as an audience. So that's really where it started, Mike.
That's so funny, man. We got so many parallels. Literally, it's probably the best thing I did, aside from being a father and my family, of course, is starting this podcast, Mic'd Up, because I get to meet people like you. I'm the first audience member. I'm always taking notes. I go back and listen to them later to make sure I didn't miss anything. Because I usually wait a couple weeks, if not months, and I'll go back because I forget certain details, and then it's almost like I'm re-experiencing it, and that's when I really learn, is like connecting the dots of my first memories of a moment, and then with like kind of bringing it back. But same thing, I just wanted to say is launching this podcast was a way that I've networked with some of the most incredible people. If you ask me to list like your top 50 most incredible people you've met, it's going to be most likely 50 people that I've interviewed. And that's always like this great reach up moment. Recently had the privilege and honor of interviewing David Meltzer. He's a great guy. I know you know who that is, because that's the connection through Todd comes from David. So as a business, though, of course, it's much more than just like, building the brand. They're now keying in on being able to be the resource of great information. And now when you become a resourceful tool, you're adding value. And when a business adds value, right, now all of a sudden they're getting it from that source, and the company becomes so much more highly valuable. And I love the part, I'd love you to speak to this. Have you ever produced a podcast where the show itself was used a little bit like a bulletin board for employees, like where the actual podcast got information similar to like the presidential emails that would come out saying, this is the direction our business is going, and you got to read this super long email, where the companies are using it for that purpose?
So you mean like client stories or our stories in terms of using the platform for that?
Yeah, like have you ever seen? I actually produce a show for the Independent Equipment Dealers Association, and they use it for members. For example, like the marketing director interviews different members of their association, so then everybody can kind of connect to a different member. It's really a cool thing, and it's like a tight-knit group. So if somebody finds it on Spotify, most likely if you're way outside of that realm, not for you, but it's not for that purpose. Like it's serving a purpose to be valuable to the group. Have you ever produced anything like that, or?
We do have one where he's in real estate. He's a real estate investor, but a lot of our real estate investors have gotten to the level where they're in the growth and contribution stage of life. It's not necessarily, to monetize the podcast. It's really to spread the word on health or faith or mindset or growth. And it benefits, like you said, employees or people in their circle, partners. And yeah, they use it for that as well. We've had multiple, one specifically, I would say, I won't mention their name, but I would say they're the top 5 companies in the world. And we're blessed that we're on their radar, and they reached out and they wanted to create an internal podcast for their employees.
Does the letter start with the letter? Is it the letter V by chance?
No.
I know you've worked with them as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll drop their name, definitely. I love Gary and all those guys. But no, we do produce.
Ding ding ding. Yeah. What do we have for him, Johnny?
we produce podcasts for his C-suite execs. But but there's another company that you would think that they have their own resources, their own stuff, but they don't necessarily want to invent or discover or figure this stuff out. So they reach out to people like us. And they specifically said, this is an internal use. Yes, it will be out, in the wild, but it's really for our people to sort of dive into this specific topic, and we educate and inspire. But I think it's evolving, as solopreneurs have been leveraging it, and the Rogans of the world have used it as a massive platform to be a global sensation. But then little guys, I'll lump you in with me. Like little guys like us, we've figured out, we don't need millions of downloads. Like I'm happy with 50. I'm happy with 100. I'm happy with, raving fans. I don't know if anyone ever read that book, but you really only need 100 loyal people in order to start a business and to have success. So that's kind of what I've been experiencing. But I know that corporations are starting to jump into it for different reasons, like you stated.
I'll say this too, on the record. I haven't mentioned this on the show before, but Social Chameleon, which we're going to hear about in a second because we're going to get to the ad break, is a company I created. And when I look at the tight knit, my favorite clients to work with, and and the reason I call them the favorite is just that, like, they're the best fit. They're actually our target avatar. Because, in the beginning, when you start a business, you kind of are willing to open it up for the kind of the masses, and then eventually you tailor it down into your target audience. I'm not suggesting that that's the strategy to use, but that's how we ended up doing it. And now it's very much a tighter knit, and we understand who our target is. But I look at the ones that are perfect for what we're doing, and they've come through mic'd up in either referral. It's somebody I interviewed, and then they realized they wanted to start their own podcast, and it's a very smooth, easy conversation because they know, like, and trust me already. It's not why I do mic'd up, but it's certainly a co-benefactor. It's a big benefit of doing the show is people get to know, like, and trust me, and they know I produce podcasts. So why would that not? That's a slam dunk. You know what I mean?
100%.
Let's get to this break. We'll be right back with Erik. We're going to talk a little bit more about your story. At the top of the show, I teased you're doing so many different things, and now we're going to unpack that in just a moment. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. We're back in action with Erik Cabral. You guys can connect with him on social media. All those links are clickable in the show notes, making it super easy to connect. Here's the deal, Erik, doing some homework on you. I realize that you offer private capital to your network of investors. You work on various projects, right? Can you give us a few examples, and just share projects that you've been investing in?
My very first deal was a multifamily, very close to home. So I'm a huge fan of the Bigger Pockets community, and they just pour into anyone who's trying to live and learn real estate investing and speak the language, because that's really what I figured out when I was trying to transition from a creative to investing, is I needed to learn how to speak the language. So when I was in the room, it sounded like it sounded like I knew what I was talking about, number one. And number two, I had to be able to understand what they were talking about, right? So, ROI and cap rates and all these terms, like I had to really educate myself. So I spent roughly a year, and within that year, took down a multifamily, which I still have to this and manage, unfortunately, to this day. And then I'm also a general partner in the second oldest winery in the country called Renault Winery. So that's a fabulous project that I was very heavily involved in the beginning, because it was was messy. It was bank owned.
Yeah.
And my business
How did you get
partner,
connected with them? That was actually my next question. It's kind of curious how.
networking, man. I was leading a meetup, a real estate investing meetup, and someone in the audience stepped up to me after the event and said, "Hey, I need you in all aspects of my life. I need podcasting. I need, I need to network. I need to expand my network." And we started working together. And then that was his very first sort of solo project because he was part of a high net worth individual. And then that partnership ended, and then he moved on. And then we started working together and started pooling our resources and people and time and all that stuff. So, and creating content. So that's how I got involved with that. But then what I started to do from there was just leveraging the things that I learned over that course of the year of like university of myself to the real estate investing. And one of the things I had to get comfortable with was my W-2 when I was working full time. I always put a piece of my salary, my checks into a retirement fund, like a 401k. And I understood that if I'm no longer employed, right? I'm unemployed technically. I can now transfer that to a self-directed IRA. So I'm not a CPA. Just full disclosure here. Go talk to a professional, but then also ask that person if they invest. Because if they don't invest in things, they may not understand what you're talking about, and therefore be reluctant to have this conversation or even encourage you to do something like this. But this is what I do. So I turned my 401k, which was dormant. They also call it an orphaned 401k. And it was sitting there, this large sum of money doing nothing, right? And I moved it over to self-directed, which is exactly what it sounds like. I have control over it. And now I can invest in real estate. But the thing is, here's one of the caveats is if I buy something with that, I can't touch the asset. I can't touch the building. I can't so much as go in and change a light bulb. So you have to have somebody managing it. So I used it for that to buy projects and then sell them, like flipping, say, for example. But then now here's the unlock for anyone. If there's anything in this episode that you're going to really appreciate or take away from this is you becoming the bank. So the banking system is not in our favor. Like when you buy a house and the bank gives you $100,000 to buy your house, they go then, if anyone owns a home, notice the note or the mortgage note, the agreement is that it goes to someone else because they make money on the spread. If anyone understands what I'm saying.
Sure.
But so they make money that way. So if you can do the same thing, you're the bank, right? With your own capital. So this is what I do. So my self-directed IRA, which now is growing because I choose projects that I invest in, and some of them is people. So someone that in my network that I love and trust says, "Hey, Erik, I'm going to go do a flip. Do you have $100,000? I will say, "Let me go check." And I'll say, "Yeah, how long do you need it for? And are you willing to pay this much for it?" So let's give an example. $100,000, I will typically say, and don't forget, this is all under your control. This is not illegal. You can do this. It's your money. You just got to work within the parameters. I'll say, "Are you willing to pay me 12% interest on this?" Now that sounds crazy to most, but we have to remember these are people that are working within real estate, and that is the price for capital. That is like people are willing to pay 10% or 12% for short-term access to cash, so that they can go buy $1 million, building.
It's similar to venture capital. Like you're going to give up a 10% usually to get access to the money you need. And then it's either dumb money or smart money. Is it strategic that you're getting help with the money, or someone just giving you a bag of cash? And that's a joke, but someone giving you access to money so you can go and do what you need to do with it, right? And in real estate investing, it sounds like if someone's willing to do the work, the management side of it, and they're like willing to get in there and do what's taking the most time, right? And an investor wants to get involved on the project, either a partner or someone that's going to say, "I'm willing to give you, you need $500,000 to put into this thing. We're willing to do that." And then what, they ask you for like a 10% kickback or something like that?
Or? So I try to keep the math simple. So say someone's buying $100,000 house and they want to flip it, and they know it'll be worth $150,000 when they sell it. So
Right.
they know it'll take them 6 months to finish the project.
But let's say
Yeah.
they don't have the money to do it, so they're getting the money from someone that they're borrowing from.
Yeah,
an investor, right?
for me, yeah. So I will
From
give them the
from
100.
you.
Yeah, so I'll give them the cash that they need to finish the project.
Right.
It's also sometimes called a bridge loan.
And what's in it for you then? Like usually like a 10%?
I'll make interest on the money.
Exactly. Okay.
And then also
Cool.
there's something that we call points. So that's a percentage of the loan up front. So I'll say 2 points and 10%, we'll say. So if it's $100,000, then it's $2,000 up front, right? That's just to set everything up. That's for me to get my team involved and to get like the paperwork and everything. So they'll give $2,000 for the setup, and then they'll pay $10,000 in interest only. And then at the end of the loan, they pay it all in full.
Cool. That's good to know. Yeah. I never quite understood exactly how that worked. And there may be people interested because I know a lot of times the entrepreneurial spirit, real estate is the game where a lot of people are making dough because if you're smart in it and you know what you're looking for and what you're doing, it's just the landscape is there and people are crushing it. Even throughout the pandemic, we're still doing very well.
Dude.
So that,
I have people in my network that 10x'd,
during the pandemic.
During the pandemic over the past 2 years, I have a really close friend of mine that was, $1 million to $2 million in net worth, and now is over $10 million in net worth, and that happened all over the past 2 years.
I just met a guy who went from like 15 units that he has to like over 600. In the last 2 years, like he's just up in the game.
A lot of opportunities.
Here's the key though. Like you're a guy that has a lot of skills and talents and your background in media, but you also have this incredible background now and a lot of time spent in investing. So like, how are you balancing being the founder? You're the founder of a handful of companies. You're this real estate investor. You created PodMax events. You're a partner in a winery and resort, as you just mentioned. And you have a beautiful family, your wife and your 2 daughters. How do you do it all? Or at least attempt to do it all. Set that up.
My answer used to be I just do all of it, but not so well. But I've recently discovered some recent unlocks to create more balance in life, and that's mainly all encompassed in one word, Mike, and that is focus. So I've intentionally removed a lot of the things that we've been discussing. So I'm not active in real estate anymore. Those investments are all now passive. One of them is still a little active and needs my attention from time to time. But for the most part, my investments are all run by operators that are my partners, and that's their subject. They're subject matter experts in that stuff. Like I could not run those projects or those properties, so they handle.
Is that something I just want to interject, Eric?
Yeah.
So like, people that like myself that are interested in getting into real estate, is that something where you're like, you put a 5-year timeline? If you kind of do the hustle really hard, then eventually you can get into it becoming passive. Was that always your vision for it?
My vision at first when I started in investing was to be active. Like I thought that I would be the one, I'd be the rainmaker. I'd find the projects, and then I would find someone like you that wants to invest in the project, and then we would all partner. But the universe and life had other plans for me, right? Which was to become a multimedia sort of engine for others. So that's really where I've been leaning. That's where I'm focusing everything on my company, On Air Brands, and that's been 5x'd over the past 3 months because as a result of us focusing on it. And the real estate's still there; it's always will be, and my company will afford me to do more of that as it grows. But right now, like you said, there's a lot of different verticals and a lot of different things and a lot of things I started because that happened when I left corporate. I was like, I need to do this. I need to crush it. And it was burning me out. And I realized that I need to focus and I need to make my life simpler. So another one of those things is just getting up early. Like that's the life hack, people. I didn't realize that because for 20 plus years, I would sleep in when I could, and I just wasn't motivated to get up. Now I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're gonna have a time change now, so I always get screwed on this end. It's like we moved the clock forward. Oh man, now I'm waking up at 5:30 or 6. But that was the unlock.
I gotta flip it. I'm going to bed at 4 o'clock. You're getting up at 4 o'clock.
Oh wow!
I gotta figure out how to flip it.
Moved to Australia.
Well, it just depends. It's That's incredible, man. That's funny. I just interviewed, like I said, a gentleman from Australia last night, and he, I was interviewing him at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and it was, I think, noon his time the next day. Like he was in the
Yeah.
future. No, it's one of those things where we talked about like that hustle of real estate, where you get like you're putting in that extra grind. I'm very much in that stage. My company, Social Chameleon's been growing so rapidly, and like we're doing more and more for our current clients. We just keep upping, upping. And it all starts with me. Like I still have my hand on everything. I'm not passive as a business owner at all with the company. And I love it. But everybody I talk to, and I've hired mentors and coaches to help me be the best version of Mike, because I could go 12 hours, and I'm just saying this out loud because I want anyone who can learn from my situation. You can go 12 hours, but if you're really effective for 8 of those, you're better off working an 8-hour day with proper sleep and rest. And I know this. So it's like, okay, if you know it, then you just got to apply what you know. And yeah, would you agree? You're shaking your head. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're better off to be rejuvenated and work 9 solid hours opposed to 12 hours of burnout.
100%. I liken it to the pendulum, where the pendulum often, especially as entrepreneurs, we always want to hustle and grind and just crush life. It's another shout to Gary. But when you do that, the pendulum is all the way to the one side, and you're burning the midnight oil. You're getting addicted to the midnight oil because you're seeing results, right, from all your hard work. But at some point, the pendulum is going to swing the other way. And that means burnout. That means time off. That means you need to take 2 weeks. That means you're stressing out on your family. You're stressing out on people around you.
You mean you're going to end up in the hospital.
Or you can end up
in the hospital.
Exactly. Yeah. So I try my best. And don't get me wrong, like I'm guilty of the pendulum and going one way to the other. But I have to recognize, and self-awareness is critical, when you're an entrepreneur, you're building businesses, to be aware of these things and the red flags, so that this way you can try to find balance. So the longer stints that I have where I'm centered, and maybe I'm not crushing it and the results aren't happening as fast as I want, and Gary has told me to be patient. So if anything, that is another piece of advice: is you want to crush life and you want to create all this stuff and you want to fast forward in time, but all of this takes time. And we have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be patient with the results. We have to be patient with the people around us. Because if you're not centered, then you could implode, basically.
Yeah. What I'd love you to do is, I could talk to you for many more hours. Erik, you're a friend of mine now. You're in my network here. And actually, I told you that, I have a reason that I'd like to move out closer to your area. I have a love. I grew up in Buffalo in Western New York. Go Bills. This is family. This is my life. But I also, I mentioned to you that my daughter has recently moved out to the Philly area, and I'd be interested in kind of checking out that Red Bank, Ocean City, right?
Yeah.
Ocean City, New Jersey. So that'll be close enough where I can hang with her within a quick hour drive.
And you're on the beach.
And
That's nice.
And I'd be on the beach, because that's where I belong, man.
Yeah.
My heart is happy when I'm sipping my coffee and I at least can I see the water? Can I see the ocean? Then I'm happy.
Yeah.
Even better if I'm on the sand, but of course it has to be the right time of the year for that. Final question for you.
Yeah.
I know you got to jut in 2 minutes, as do I. Think of it this way. You're an author, protagonist, right, in your own life story. You get to write the ending, and God willing, that you get to continue to live a long and prosperous life. You're looking back on it. You're reflecting on it. You get to define your legacy. What would that be?
Yeah. My legacy really gets carried through literally, like, family, and friends, and the impact that I've made. Now I understand, like, in 100 years, no one's really going to know or talk about Erik Cabral. But what I would hope is that the impact that I've made on people's lives and their business and their life, that ripple effect created something. And I don't have to take credit for it, but I would hope that, my grandkids or someone says, do you remember grandpa being this? Or do you remember dad being this? And this was all happened as a result of something he did, or something that he created, or the connections that he made. So that's really the legacy. Is I hope that I make a positive change in the world, through all those microwave
You're doing
moves.
it, brother. I see it. I see what you're doing out there. I know the effort that you're putting in and the difference you're truly making. And I'd challenge you. I know you're saying that because you're a humble dude, and I appreciate you being humble here on the show. But I would say that it's out of the question that in 100 years people could say, hey, this particular company or thing, part of podcasting, something you may have not even created yet that you don't know exists yet. You're only 49, right?
Yeah.
You got hopefully plenty of time. And you could still do that thing that makes that difference. And I know you're not doing it for the acknowledgement, but you said the words, I know that in 100 years, nobody will say my name. And I don't think that's true. So I'm just going to challenge you.
I appreciate that.
I know you don't need that because you're already extremely wired and positive as a man and with your family. But there's so much out there that ignites you. And I see it and I feel it. And I believe that, there's even more for you and I that we don't know exists yet. Because guess what? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people didn't know what we're doing today didn't exist.
True.
10 years, who knows what, Eric?
Yeah.
Maybe we're working together. I'm actually already thinking and manifesting that you and I are going to work together.
That's awesome.
So I'll let you run. Thank you so much for coming out, chatting with the Mic'd Up Universe today. I learned a lot from you, and I look forward to continuing this friendship, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me, brother.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mikedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mikedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCioccio, MikeDiCioccio. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.